Chapter 1903. Whoosh! Suddenly, a white light flashed past, attracting everyone's attention. A young man in a snow-white robe flew directly to the front seat and sat down. That's Heng Xinghe. Huang Ling transmitted her voice to Lu Ming. Lu Ming nodded and remembered that person. He had a feeling that he and Heng Xinghe would have a battle sooner or later. More and more sky prides arrived, and the number of people on the mountain peak continued to increase. In the end, nearly 10,000 people had arrived. However, there were nearly 10,000 people sitting there, but there was no sound at all. No one spoke, and the mountain peak was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. The old man did not speak either. He had been resting with his eyes closed. After half an hour, no one came. At that moment, the old man opened his eyes. When the old man opened his eyes, everyone had the illusion that they had suddenly arrived in the starry sky of the universe. But in the next moment, this illusion disappeared without a trace. Alright, almost everyone is here. If there's still anyone who hasn't arrived, we won't wait any longer. Today I will preach. The old man spoke with a gentle voice that sounded in everyone's ears. Everyone was shocked. This old man was indeed a great emperor. According to legend, the three great emperors who founded the Yuan Mountain Academy were called Heavenly Fire Emperor, Heavenly Chaos Emperor, and Wuxia Emperor. Which one of the three great emperors was this great emperor? I'm Wuxia. From now on, you can call me Dean Wuxia. The old man smiled slightly. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. It turned out that this person was Emperor Wuxia. He was the pinnacle existence in the entire Yuan Mountain. He stood at the top of all living beings, and had lived for an unknown number of years. Now let the preaching begin. Emperor Wuxia's voice sounded, and everyone focused their attention. At that moment, a small bell appeared in Emperor Wuxia's hand. The small bell flew into the sky and rapidly expanded. Dong! The small bell vibrated and rang. When everyone heard the bell ring, they immediately felt their minds sharpen, and their thoughts become more focused. What a wonderful bell! Lu Ming discovered that the effect of this bell was similar to that of the Tao Comprehension ancient tree. Then rays of multicolored light spread out from the small bell. When everyone was enveloped by this multicolored light, their thoughts seemed to become more focused. This is the Bodhi bell. This old man has spent several years absorbing the Bodhi bell's Bodhi chi. The Bodhi chi and the Bodhi bell can greatly increase the speed and efficiency of your Tao comprehension. Emperor Wuxiang explained. Emperor Wuxiang really made ample preparations for this lecture. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. No wonder almost all the prodigies in the land of Primordial Mountain gathered at the Primordial Mountain Holy Courtyard. Where else could such treatment be found? The Tao that this old man is talking about is not biased towards a particular law, but the Great Tao. There are countless laws in the world, but the Great Tao is one. Any law can be comprehended from the Great Tao. How much you can comprehend will depend on your own perception. As soon as he finished speaking, his body seemed to have changed. His silhouette disappeared, and he transformed into a world of his own. Boundless sounds could be heard from the world, and boundless light enveloped everyone. This was the most fundamental Great Tao, infinitely mysterious. Lu Ming couldn't help but recall that when he participated in the Hunyuan sect's assessment, there was a stage called the Abyss of Tao Comprehension. It was very similar to Emperor Wuxiang's lecture. Both were great Taoists that pointed directly to the origin. At this moment, everyone closed their eyes and quietly comprehended the Tao. Emperor Wuxiang's lecture lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. After 3 days and 3 nights, Emperor Wuxiang stopped. However, no one woke up. They were all immersed in a deep level of Tao comprehension. Emperor Wuxiang revealed a gentle smile and closed his eyes again. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Boom! A powerful aura rose from one person's body. This person actually made a breakthrough. Not long after, this person opened his eyes. Haha! My cultivation has broken through from the great mastery of the Bright Sage Realm to the peak of the Bright Sage Realm. This person was ecstatic. He had been stuck at the great mastery of the Bright Sage Realm for some time and couldn't break through. However, this time, the great emperor's lecture allowed him to break through. Then he looked around. In the next moment his face turned ugly. The others were still comprehending the Tao. He was the first person to wake up. The earlier one woke up, the worse one's comprehension was, and the less they comprehended. The young man's excitement from breaking through disappeared without a trace. It was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head. Since you've finished comprehending the Tao, you may leave. A voice sounded in the young man's mind. It was Emperor Wuxiang's voice. The young man's heart trembled. He hurriedly got up, bowed to the great emperor, and left. However, he didn't go far. He stood in the void far away and watched from afar. He was very curious about who among so many geniuses was the last to wake up. After this young man, more and more people woke up and made breakthroughs in their cultivation. The great emperor's lecture was indeed very effective with the support of the Bodhi bell. However, most of the people who broke through were in the bright sage realm. The higher the cultivation, the harder it was to break through. It wasn't that easy to break through in the great sage realm, let alone those above the absolute sage realm. On the 20th day, half of the people had woken up and finished comprehending the Tao. Everyone had gained something. The longer they comprehended the Tao, the greater their gains. Like the first young man, those who finished comprehending the Tao left the mountain and watched from afar. Boom! At that moment, a powerful aura erupted from another person's body. A great sage prodigy had made a breakthrough. After that, there were a few other great sage chosen, who achieved breakthroughs in their cultivation levels. Of course, the great sage prodigies were able to break through because they were already at the limit of a certain realm and were about to break through. Therefore, when the great emperor gave his lecture, they all broke through their limits and stepped into a higher realm. If they had just broken through a certain realm, it would be difficult for them to break through so quickly. A month later, there were less than 1,000 people left. A month and a half later, there were only about 200 people left. 2 months later, there were only a few dozen people left who were still comprehending the Tao. These last few dozen people could be said to be the ones with the best talent. Most of them had the monarch body and had mastered the monarch Tao. Huangling Long Chun, Huangli Autumn Moon, and the others were still comprehending the Tao. The monarch body is really amazing. He can actually comprehend it for 2 months. How much can he gain from comprehending the Tao for 2 months? Many people were envious, especially those who finished comprehending the Tao in less than 10 days. Chapter 1904. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying aura soared into the sky. One of the young men surged with holy power, and his aura grew stronger. He's a paragon saint, someone exclaimed. Someone with a king body had become a paragon saint. In fact, someone had already become a paragon saint before this, but it wasn't a king body. Some people had been at the peak of the great saint realm for a long time, and had accumulated enough. Now that they had comprehended something during the great emperor's lecture, they directly broke through. However, he was the first to become a paragon saint with a king body. That person took out a large number of origin stones, and began to absorb origin chi to improve his cultivation. Breaking through to the paragon saint realm caused a huge commotion, but the remaining people were protected by the great emperor's energy, so they weren't disturbed at all. A few days later, the person who had broken through retracted his aura and opened his eyes. There was joy in his eyes. He had a king body, and now that he had become a paragon saint, his battle prowess had skyrocketed. He could be considered one of the strongest people in the Origin Mountain Academy. He glanced at the remaining people, and his expression darkened. Among the many king bodies, he was the first to finish comprehending. Could it be that his talent was the worst among the king bodies? Impossible. He couldn't accept this. He thought that he had finished comprehending early, because of his breakthrough. I'd like to see who will be the last to finish comprehending. Will it be Hung Xinghe, Deathblade, or Lu Ming? His gaze swept across Hung Xinghe, Deathblade, and Lu Ming. He then took a step forward and left the place, watching from afar. After this person, every day, there would be another person with a king body waking up. The cultivation of these king bodies was very high. Some were paragon saints, some were great saints, and the weakest was peak great saints. Many people with king bodies at the supreme saint realm had broken through to the next level, but very few absolute saints had broken through to the next level. Boom! Boom! 2.5 months later, a shocking aura erupted from Long Chen's body. He had also broken through from the peak of the Great Saint Realm to the Paragon Saint Realm. On the second day, a powerful aura also erupted from Huang Ling's body. She had also begun to break through. They had been at the peak of the Great Saint Realm for a long time, and had been cultivating in the Origin Mountain Academy. The geniuses of Phoenix Palace and Divine Elephant Sect were overjoyed to see the two of them break through one after another. After Huang Ling and Long Chen woke up, Autumn Moon, Luo Xiang, and Huang Li also woke up. Autumn Moon had just become a supreme saint not long ago, so he couldn't break through so quickly. However, he had gained a lot. His cultivation was much closer to the great success of the Supreme Saint Realm, and his divine powers had improved a lot. As for Luo Xiang, due to his lack of accumulation, he hadn't broken through to the Absolute Saint stage. However, he had reached the limit of the complete Supreme Saint stage. As for Desolate Force, he had reached the level of Absolute Saint 5 months ago. However, he hadn't broken through yet, but he had reached the limit of Absolute Saint Small Success. He wasn't far from Absolute Saint Large Success. Every one of them had gained a great deal. As time passed, the remaining king bodies woke up one by one. Suddenly, one of the remaining people who were comprehending the Tao erupted with a shocking aura. Another person made a breakthrough. It was Luo Zhangqiong. Haha, my elder brother Luo Zhangqiong has made a breakthrough. He's now a perfected absolute saint. Luo Pokong was ecstatic. He had actually reached the peak of the Paragon Saint Realm. Many people were shocked. Luo Zhangqiong was already very powerful. He was ranked 10th on the King Sage board. Of course, the King Sage board wasn't necessarily accurate, but it was still significant. Now that his cultivation had broken through, he was undoubtedly stronger. Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, Long Chen, and the others didn't look too good. Luo Zhangqiong was destined to be their enemy. His breakthrough was disadvantageous to them. Soon Luo Zhangqiong woke up. Humph! After waking up, Luo Zhangqiong looked at Lu Ming, who was still comprehending the Tao. Cold murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He couldn't wait to kill Lu Ming, but he didn't dare to do so when he saw Emperor Wuxia sitting there cross-legged. If he offended a great emperor, even his grandfather wouldn't be able to protect him. It won't be too late to kill you when you wake up, Luo Zhangqiong muttered. He then left and watched from afar. 3 months later, only 3 people were still comprehending the Tao: Heng Xinghe, Deathblade, and Lu Ming. As expected, the 3 of them stayed until the end. The Elysian children are indeed extraordinary. Someone exclaimed. Humph! It's just that they have been comprehending the Tao for a longer time. It doesn't mean anything. No one can predict their future achievements. A martial monarch flesh harumphed. That's right, even though the Elysian children are strong, their advantage is no longer as obvious after achieving the martial monarch realm. Besides, their future achievements might not be as outstanding as the martial monarch flesh. In history, many people with martial monarch flesh ended up surpassing the Elysian children. That's right. Even those without martial monarch flesh managed to reach the peak and surpass the Elysian children. The others blurted out. Those standing here were all geniuses with their pride. How could they submit to others so easily? Being in the lead now didn't necessarily mean they would be in the lead in the future. Anything was possible after achieving the martial monarch realm. Another 10 days were gone. On this day, Heng Xinghe and Deathblade both finished comprehending the Tao and opened their eyes. Their cultivations had yet to rank up, as it was said that they had just had a breakthrough before the martial monarch's lecture. They exchanged glances with one another. Their eyes flickered coldly before they glanced at Lu Ming. Lu Ming was still comprehending the Tao. Deathblade's eyes flickered as he thought of something before he left the place with a flicker. On the other hand, Heng Xinghe's eyes flickered sharply. He had initially thought he would be the last one to finish comprehending the Tao. He did not expect someone to last longer than him. So you're Lu Ming? Hee hee. Xinghe sneered and took a step forward, flying into the distant sky. Lu Ming was the only one who was still comprehending the Tao. Everyone's gaze landed on Lu Ming's figure. Who would have thought that Lu Ming would last longer than Heng Xinghe and Deathblade? How shocking. Could it be that his talent is higher than Heng Xinghe and Deathblade's? Some discussed among themselves. Humph, who knows if he's just pretending? He's already woken up. But he's still pretending to be comprehending the Tao. Luo Pokong spoke with a jealous look. Are you doubting martial monarch Wuxiang's judgment? For you to say such words, it really makes you look very stupid. Autumn Moon glanced at Luo Pokong and mocked. Autumn Moon had returned to her usual self in front of Lu Ming, obedient and obedient. However, in front of others, she behaved completely differently, just like before she lost her memory. Perhaps it was related to her experience during Autumn Moon's time. You. Luo Pokong's face turned dark, but he couldn't refute. Chapter 1905. At this moment, Lu Ming felt like he was in the middle of a galaxy. He moved around in the galaxy like lightning. At the same time, he kept pointing his finger. Giant chaos fingers were formed and pointed at the stars in the distance. The primal chaos tribulation finger was even larger than a star. Every time it pointed at a star, that star would explode like fireworks, blooming in the universe. It was a spectacular sight. A moment later, Lu Ming stopped. The chaos ring is 90% complete. Lu Ming smiled. He was very satisfied. During this period of time, he had been using the martial monarch's lectures as an excuse to comprehend the chaotic tribulation finger. The chaos fingers had improved from 80% to 90%. The higher the level of a divine skill, the harder it was to improve it. The difficulty kept increasing. It would take a long time to improve from 80% to 90% under normal circumstances. However, with the help of the great emperor's teachings, Lu Ming managed to do it. The chaos fingers had improved from 80% to 90%, and its power was greatly reduced. Of course, it would be even more difficult to improve from 90% to the perfection stage. It would take a lot of effort to improve it. My cultivation is about to have a breakthrough too. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the perfection stage of the Supreme Saint Realm. He only needed an opportunity to have a breakthrough. Although he had been focusing on comprehending the chaos fingers, his cultivation had also improved. He had finally reached the critical point. In the 4th month, a shocking aura burst out of Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming is about to have a breakthrough. He's about to reach the Supreme Saint Realm. Someone exclaimed. Lu Ming's strength was already shocking when he was at the perfection stage of the Supreme Saint Realm. He could even suppress Luo Pokong, who was at the lesser success stage of the Supreme Saint Realm. How strong would he be after reaching the Supreme Saint Realm? Many people were looking forward to it. Lu Ming is finally about to have a breakthrough. The eyes of Huang Ling, Qiu Yu, Long Chun, and the others glittered. Humph, so what if he has a breakthrough? It's more interesting to kill him now. Luo Tsangqiong sneered as his killing intent intensified. As time passed, Lu Ming's aura grew stronger and stronger. With a wave of his hand, a large number of origin stones appeared. His devouring power erupted, and these origin stones turned into rolling origin chi, which he devoured and converted into saint power. A few days later, Lu Ming withdrew all of his aura. He'd officially become an absolute saint. Meanwhile, martial monarch Wuxiang, who had been sitting with his legs crossed, opened his eyes and said, "All right, the comprehension is over. The next lecture will be held in 3 years. Another martial monarch will be here then." After saying that, Emperor Wuxiang's figure vanished into thin air. No one saw how Emperor Wuxiang disappeared. It was as if he had never been there in the first place. Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared at Autumn Moon, where Huang Ling and the others were. He looked around and smiled. Huang Ling, Long Chun, Huang Di, congratulations on achieving a breakthrough and becoming a paragon saint. He realized that Huang Ling and Long Chun weren't the only ones who had broken through. A few people from the desolate race had also broken through and entered the paragon saint realm. Most of the 9 youths who had followed Lu Ming were at the great saint realm and had been there for a long time. This time, with the help of the martial monarch's lecture, their cultivation levels had all broken through. Although these people didn't have king bodies, the desolate race was strong to begin with. Furthermore, they had superior heaven spiritual bodies, so they weren't weak. As a result, there were quite a number of paragon saints on their side. Lu Ming, you've also broken through. I really don't know how powerful a pervert like you is. Long Chen laughed. The others laughed as well. Indeed, Lu Ming was so strong when he was at the Great Saint Realm. Now that he had become a paragon saint, how strong would he be? They were all very curious. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying aura enveloped them. Everyone's expression changed as they looked in one direction. Luo Tsangqiong stepped forward. The terrifying aura came from Luo Tsangqiong. Behind him, Luo Pokong and the other elites of the Daluo Heaven sect followed. Autumn Moon, come here. Come to my side. Luo Tsangqiong looked at Autumn Moon and spoke in a domineering tone, as if he was giving an order. Luo Tsangqiong, stop pestering me. I've already said that I have no feelings for you. Autumn Moon said. Come here. Luo Tsangqiong's voice was heavy and domineering. Autumn Moon, let's go. Lu Ming held Autumn Moon's hand and ignored Luo Tsangqiong. Stop right there, Lu Ming. How dare you touch my woman? Be careful or I'll exterminate your whole family. Luo Tsangqiong's voice was like thunder as it rang in Lu Ming's ears. In the surroundings, many of the geniuses who were about to leave stopped in their tracks and looked over curiously. Was there going to be a conflict after the Enlightenment? And it was between Luo Tsangqiong and Lu Ming. Many people were looking forward to it. Your woman? Haha, how ridiculous. Autumn Moon grew up with me. Since when did she become your woman? Moreover, Autumn Moon has already said that she has no feelings for you and asked you to stop pestering her. You're really shameless. Lu Ming turned around and looked at Luo Tsangqiong coldly as he spoke in disdain. Do you know who you're talking to? Because of what you said, you'll implicate your family and friends. They'll all die because of you. Luo Tsangqiong said coldly as he glanced at Huang Ling, Long Chen and the others. He didn't hide his murderous intent at all. Who do you think you are? If you want to kill me, I'll chop you into pieces first. Huang Li yelled and revealed his murderous intent. Lu Ming also revealed a cold murderous intent in his eyes. He hated it when others used his family and friends to threaten him. Luo Tsangqiong, let me tell you, Lu Ming is my young master. I once said that I'll serve him for the rest of my life. I have no feelings for you. What's the point of pestering him? Autumn Moon said. Bitch, shut up. If I say you're mine, you're mine. No one can take you away from me. Do you understand? Luo Tsangqiong shouted coldly. His grandfather was a great emperor, one of the top experts in the world. Since he was young, there was nothing he couldn't get. It was the same for women. Haha, how ridiculous. Autumn Moon doesn't like you. So you used the law of deprivation to deprive Autumn Moon of her memories. Unfortunately, Autumn Moon still has no feelings for you. Such a ridiculous and despicable person still has the face to stay in Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy and call himself a genius. How ridiculous. Lu Ming sneered as his voice spread across the entire place. Many people suddenly realized that this was the case. Luo Tsangqiong couldn't get Autumn Moon's heart, so he used the law of deprivation to deprive Autumn Moon of her memories. Such behavior was indeed shameless. So what? Luo Tsangqiong spoke, and his gaze turned even colder. It seems that you have recovered your memory. I'll deprive you of your memory again. This time, I'll deprive you of all your memory. Lu Ming, I'll cripple your cultivation and make you watch helplessly as Chiu Yu becomes my woman. Boom, boom, boom. Chapter 1906. Luo Tsangqiong was incomparably domineering. So what if others knew that he had taken away Autumn Moon's memories? He was the grandson of the great emperor. Who would dare to speak ill of him in front of him? In front of him, each and every one of them had to fawn over him. And now, he wanted to take away Autumn Moon's memories in front of everyone and obtain Autumn Moon. Luo Tsangqiong stepped towards Lu Ming and Autumn Moon. Heaven and earth rumbled. He raised a palm and clenched it. Between heaven and earth, endless energy gathered towards Luo Tsangqiong's palm. No, it couldn't be said that it was gathered. It was completely taken away by him. Yuan Qi and various elemental energies between heaven and earth were taken away by Luo Tsangqiong. They were compressed together, forming a huge palm that pressed down on Lu Ming and Autumn Moon. At this moment, the law of yin and yang circulated around Autumn Moon's body. Two scimitars flew out, intending to face Luo Tsangqiong head-on. Autumn Moon, let me do it. Lu Ming's voice rang out. Then he took a step forward. Light spots lit up on his body. There were more than 200 light spots, and a sacred weapon flew out from each light spot. On the way back to Celestial City, Lu Ming had cultivated the myriad weapon art. He had sealed a large number of sacred weapons in his acupoints. Among them, there were 18 supreme sacred weapons, 108 great sacred weapons, and the number of supreme sacred weapons remained unchanged. There were also 108 supreme sacred weapons. Altogether, there were 234 supreme sacred weapons. So many sacred weapons appeared, floating around Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming stepped on the sacred weapons and casually grabbed a supreme sacred weapon. The sacred weapon's aura gathered, and with a slash, a boundless sword chi cut through the void, cutting Luo Zongqiong's huge palm in half. "Let's see how many moves you can take from me," Luo Zongqiong shouted. He waved his hands continuously, and the law of deprivation circulated. The law of deprivation absorbed the energy between heaven and earth, forming a terrifying attack that attacked Lu Ming. Lu Ming stood in the midst of the saint weapon, stepping on it as he moved forward. His battle sword slashed out unceasingly, breaking apart the opponent's attacks. The attacks of the two were extremely violent and powerful. The surrounding people were forced to retreat continuously. Autumn Moon stood behind Lu Ming. Her two scimitars danced in the air, and she did not retreat at all. If the situation changed, she would not hesitate to take action. Back in the Burning Sun Empire, she was too weak to help Lu Ming. Now that she was strong enough, she would stay by Lu Ming's side and protect him. The cry of a phoenix rang out. The phoenix spirit was bathed in the undying flames. She stepped forward and stood side by side with Autumn Moon. Autumn Moon looked at Huang Ling and smiled kindly. Huang Ling was stunned and smiled back. Then, Long Chun and Huang Li stepped forward. Lu Ming and Luo Zongqiong have started fighting. Who do you think will win? It's hard to say. Lu Ming has just become an absolute saint, but Luo Zongqiong's cultivation has already reached the complete absolute saint realm. Although Lu Ming was able to suppress Luo Pokong, who was in the initial absolute saint realm, and his combat strength is amazing, Luo Zongqiong is not Luo Pokong. That's right. There are strong and weak people even with king bodies. Luo Zongqiong's combat strength is terrifying. His law of deprivation is extremely powerful. Even if it's not as powerful as the 10 ultimate laws, it's still one of the top King Wei laws. The Son of Chaos cannot be measured by common sense. It's hard to say who will win in this battle. The spectators were all guessing who would win, but they could not say for sure. Some people thought that Luo Zongqiong was stronger. After all, his cultivation was 2 levels higher than Lu Ming's, and his law of deprivation was extremely terrifying. His combat strength was definitely above Lu Ming's. However, some people speculated that Lu Ming might not be weaker than Luo Zongqiong, based on Lu Ming's previous battle results. In the blink of an eye, the two had exchanged dozens of blows, but there was no clear winner. Blade of Deprivation. Luo Zongqiong did not continue to deprive the world of energy. Instead, he used the law of deprivation to form a huge saber and slashed at Lu Ming. Go! Lu Ming's mind stirred, and the sacred weapons gathered together. The aura of the combat weapons burst forth and blasted toward Luo Zongqiong. However, his expression changed slightly when he collided with Luo Zongqiong's saber. This was because he felt that there was a terrifying power of deprivation in Luo Zongqiong's battle saber. It wanted to deprive him of the aura of the battle weapon. It even wanted to deprive Lu Ming of the spiritual consciousness that was attached to the sacred weapon. Even the spirituality of the sacred weapon itself would be deprived, and it would turn into scrap metal. After depriving Lu Ming of the energy of his sacred weapon, the power of Luo Zongqiong's saber increased greatly. With a shake, it forced everyone's sacred weapons back. Whoosh! 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 More than 200 sacred weapons gathered behind Lu Ming and formed a pair of huge wings. The sacred weapon's chi gathered on the saber in Lu Ming's hand. Lu Ming took a step forward and slashed at Luo Zongqiong with his saber. Boom! The saber collided with Luo Zongqiong's saber. Deprive! Luo Zongqiong used the law of deprivation to deprive Lu Ming of his power of law, and even his sacred power. However, in the next moment, Luo Zongqiong's expression changed drastically. His body shook, and he could not help but retreat a few thousand meters in the void. Can you deprive me of the law of chaos? Lu Ming said coldly, and continued to attack Luo Zongqiong. Just now, he had covered his saber with a layer of the law of chaos. The law of chaos was one of the 10 strongest laws. Although the law of deprivation was overbearing, it could not deprive him of the law of chaos. Blade of deprivation. Luo Zongqiong's face was gloomy. He waved his hands and 9 sabers were formed. They charged at Lu Ming from different directions. Lu Ming put away all his sacred weapons and fought back with the suppressing hell skill. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming threw out 9 punches in a row. 9 suppressing hell steels appeared and collided with the 9 blades of deprivation. Deprive! Deprive! Luo Zongqiong shouted, trying to deprive Lu Ming of his sacred power. However, the suppressing hell skill was supported by the law of chaos. Moreover, the power of the suppressing hell skill was very strange. Lu Ming felt that even without the law of chaos, his opponent could not deprive him of the power of the suppressing hell skill. The suppressing hell steel's shadows suppressed the heavens and the earth and knocked away Luo Zongqiong's 9 blades of deprivation. Luo Zongqiong's law is restrained. The law of chaos is the emperor of all laws. The law of deprivation can't affect it at all. Luo Zongqiong is in danger in this battle. Some people discussed and expressed their opinions. Luo Zongqiong's law of deprivation was extremely overbearing. It could deprive everything, including other laws. An ordinary monarch body would be restricted by Luo Zongqiong and be greatly affected by the law of deprivation. However, Luo Zongqiong's law of deprivation could not exert its advantage against Lu Ming. Since I can't deprive you, I'll crush you with absolute power and deprive you of the divine seal. Luo Zongqiong waved his hand, and the 9 blades of deprivation collapsed. Then Luo Zongqiong formed a seal with his palms and turned into a large seal. Chapter 1907. The divine seal of deprivation was Luo Zongqiong's superpower. It could deprive all the energy in the world, including the power of other laws. When combined, it would form a terrifying attack. All the energy around the divine seal of deprivation seemed to have been stripped away, forming a void space. Sizzle! All kinds of energy gathered on the divine seal of deprivation, making ear-piercing sounds. It turned into the size of a mountain and blasted toward Lu Ming. Go to hell! Luo Zongqiong shouted, his murderous intent thick. Since he could not deprive Lu Ming of the chaotic law, he would use his absolute power to suppress Lu Ming. His divine ability had already reached 90% mastery, and its power was terrifying enough to seize the world. Moreover, it was a superpower formed by the divine seal of deprivation, and its power was far beyond ordinary laws. He had full confidence in his superpower. At his age, there were very few people who could cultivate a superpower to 90% mastery. So what if Lu Ming's chaotic law was strong? Luo Zongqiong's superpower was far weaker than his, and he would still be crushed. What a terrifying superpower! Luo Zongqiong's superpower has probably reached 90% mastery. He is indeed a peerless genius to be able to cultivate a superpower to 90% mastery at such a young age. His ranking on the King's Sage board is not undeserved. Luo Zongqiong's superpower shocked many geniuses. More people looked solemn as they felt a strong pressure. Chaotic calamity finger. Lu Ming's expression did not change. The chaotic law burst forth as he pointed his finger out. A huge finger surrounded by the color of primal chaos shot toward the divine seal of deprivation. Boom! The divine seal of deprivation and the chaotic calamity finger collided in the air, causing an earth-shattering explosion. Whoosh! Terrifying energy swept out in all directions. Some of the weaker geniuses could not even stand properly and were forced to retreat. The divine seal of deprivation and the chaotic calamity finger were in a stalemate. Deprive! Luo Zongqiong roared as he activated all the power in his body. The divine seal of deprivation was unleashed in a frenzy. Luo Zongqiong, is this all you have? Is this all you got? Lu Ming sneered. The chaotic law was activated crazily, entangled with the saint power, and surged toward the chaotic calamity finger. Boom! The chaotic finger of calamity vibrated, and its power grew even stronger. The terrifying power caused the divine seal of deprivation to vibrate violently. Luo Zongqiong's expression changed drastically. He felt that the divine seal of deprivation was about to collapse. How was this possible? His divine seal of deprivation had already reached 90% completion, and it was a divine ability condensed from the law of deprivation. How could Lu Ming's divine ability be stronger than his? Lu Ming had just broken through to the Saint Realm, and he cultivated the law of primal chaos. How could Lu Ming's mastery of divine ability compare to his? He was not the only one. The people around him also found it hard to believe. Luo Zongqiong's divine ability technique was terrifying, but he was at a disadvantage in the confrontation of divine ability techniques. Lu Ming's strength was beyond everyone's imagination. Luo Zongqiong, I really can't figure it out. With your strength, why do you still look so superior? Where does your confidence come from? Lu Ming continued. The power of the primal chaos tribulation finger was fully unleashed. Kacha! Bam! The divine seal of deprivation cracked, and finally exploded with a bang. Luo Zongqiong groaned, and his body frantically retreated, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Although Luo Zongqiong's divine ability had reached 90% completion, Lu Ming's chaotic calamity finger had also reached 90% completion. Divine ability techniques of the same level were invincible, unless they were also of the top 10 laws. Many people were shocked. Luo Zongqiong was injured, and he was no match for Lu Ming. Lu Ming stepped into the air, closing in on Luo Zongqiong. His voice continued to ring out. Didn't you want to cripple me? Come on, this little bit of strength is still not enough. After saying that, Lu Ming pointed out again. A chaotic calamity finger crushed toward Luo Zongqiong. Luo Zongqiong's face was extremely ugly. He roared and used the divine seal of deprivation again. However, under his injury, it was more difficult for him to resist Lu Ming's attack. In an instant, the divine seal of deprivation was defeated. Luo Zongqiong screamed, and his body was blasted tens of thousands of meters away, spitting out mouthfuls of blood. His injury was even more serious. Not far away, Luo Pokong and the other talents of the Daoyuo Heaven sect were pale. Even Luo Zongqiong was no match for Lu Ming. They wanted to help, but they dared not go forward, fearing that they would be crushed by Lu Ming. Bam! Bam! Lu Ming did not stop. He stepped into the void and stepped toward Luo Zongqiong. Lu Ming, sooner or later, I will let you die without a burial place. I mean it. Luo Zongqiong roared, his eyes full of crazy killing intent. Rely on you or the power behind you. Well, trash like you can only rely on the power behind you. Lu Ming sneered, full of sarcasm. In other words, Luo Zongqiong was no match for Lu Ming at all with his own strength. He had to rely on the power behind him. You forgot one thing. Now the power behind you is not here. I have the advantage. You should not threaten me. Lu Ming said coldly. He did not hide his killing intent. He took a step and flew toward Luo Zongqiong like lightning. Kill! Lu Ming shouted, and the divine sword technique erupted. Two dark sword lights burst out from his eyes and rushed toward Luo Zongqiong. At the same time, his right hand pointed out again. The terrible chaotic calamity finger crushed toward Luo Zongqiong. Lu Ming wants to kill Luo Zongqiong? How dare he? He is simply lawless. Many people gasped in shock. Killing was not allowed in the Yuan Mountain Sacred Courtyard. This was the rule set by the great emperor. But now Lu Ming did not hide his killing intent. His eyes were cold, and he did not show any mercy. He was obviously going to kill Luo Zongqiong. Luo Zongqiong was known as lawless and unscrupulous, but he did not dare to go against the order of the great emperor. However, Lu Ming wanted to kill Luo Zongqiong in the Yuan Mountain Sacred Courtyard. This was the true definition of lawlessness. How dare you? Luo Zongqiong roared. He did not expect Lu Ming to dare to kill him here. He fought back, but there was no doubt that he was once again blasted away by Lu Ming. Half of his body was almost smashed. His breath was weak, and his injuries were extremely serious. Die! Lu Ming shouted coldly, and used the chaotic calamity finger again. You! Luo Zongqiong's eyes finally showed fear. Lu Ming was crazy. He wanted to kill him. Was he not afraid of being punished by the great emperor? He wanted to perish together with him. He frantically retreated, but he could not escape from Lu Ming's lock. The terrifying aura of the chaotic calamity finger firmly shrouded him. No help! Luo Tsangqiong shouted in horror. It was a world of difference from his previous arrogant look. Whoosh! At this moment, a palm print pierced through the sky and blasted toward Lu Ming's chaotic calamity finger at an astonishing speed. With a boom, the chaotic calamity finger exploded, and the remaining power of the palm print continued to blast toward Lu Ming. Chapter 1908. Lu Ming exerted the heaven-suppressing art, and threw out a punch with all his might. A phantom of the prison-suppressing monument appeared in front of him, but when the palm print hit, the phantom of the prison-suppressing monument exploded. Lu Ming's body was pushed back for tens of thousands of meters, before he stopped in the air with blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth. A young figure in white with long black hair stepped in front of Luo Tsangqiong. Hung Xinghe. Lu Ming's pupils shrank. Many people were also shocked. The one who attacked just now was Hung Xinghe, the peerless genius who ranked first on the King Sage board. He had sent Lu Ming flying and injured Lu Ming with just one move. Was he going to attack Lu Ming? Brother Hung. Luo Tsangqiong was overjoyed. At the same time, he stuffed pills into his mouth to heal his injuries. Lu Ming stared at Hung Xinghe and said, "You want to intervene?" Luo Tsangqiong is the grandson of the great emperor. How can he be bullied by you? Hung Xinghe said. Lu Ming sneered. According to Hung Xinghe, the grandson of the great emperor could bully others without them being able to retaliate. What a joke! At this time, Hung Xinghe continued. Besides, I have other things to discuss with you. You were the one who pulled out the sword of the heavenly emperor. That belongs to the Hung family. Now hand it over to me. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes slightly. Indeed, Hung Xinghe had intervened for this matter. The other geniuses around were shocked. It turned out that Hung Xinghe's real purpose was to get the sword of the heavenly emperor. Saving Luo Tsangqiong was just a matter of convenience. The news of Lu Ming pulling out the sword of the heavenly emperor had spread like wildfire in Celestial City. Now that Lu Ming had returned, the Hung family was indeed looking for Lu Ming. How should Lu Ming deal with it? Should he hand it over or not? Everyone's gaze was on Lu Ming. Legend has it that the sword of the heavenly emperor was left behind by the heavenly emperor. But that is just a legend after all. You said that the sword belongs to the Hung family. Do you have any evidence? Maybe it was left behind by another peerless expert. Lu Ming responded. Although it was rumored that the sword belonged to the Celestial Empyrean, and was left behind by the Celestial Empyrean, who founded Celestial City, it was only a legend. Could the Hung clan take out any proof? Xinghe clasped his hands behind his back. His eyes flashed with sharpness as he said, Everyone in the Celestial City knows that the sword was left behind by the Celestial Emperor. And the Hung family is the descendant of the Celestial Emperor. Is there a need to prove this? Since you, Hung Xinghe, are the descendants of the Heavenly Emperor, why can't you pull out that sword? Lu Ming's voice was sonorous and forceful, spreading throughout the audience. Xinghe's face instantly darkened. Lu Ming was mocking him for not being able to pull out the Celestial Darch sword. I will pull out the sword of the Celestial Emperor sooner or later. Stellar River said coldly. Hehe, could it be that drawing the sword has something to do with one's cultivation? Lu Ming smiled faintly. Many people's eyes flickered. Lu Ming was mocking Stellar River. Everyone knew that pulling out the Celestial Emperor's sword had nothing to do with one's cultivation. There was once a martial emperor powerhouse who couldn't even pull out 1 foot. And there were those who had just started cultivating, who could pull out 5 feet. Hung Xinghe had once pulled out 9 feet, but it was estimated that he would only be able to pull out 9 feet in his lifetime. The probability of pulling out the sword would not increase with the increase of one's cultivation. But Hung Xinghe said that he would pull it out sooner or later. Lu Ming's rhetorical question was a blatant mockery of Xinghe. Xinghe's face turned even uglier. The sharpness in his eyes was even more intense, like 2 divine swords. Moreover, even if that sword was really left behind by the Celestial Emperor, and your Hung family is the descendant of the Celestial Emperor, why didn't the Celestial Emperor directly leave the sword to your Hung family? Instead, He stuck it on that platform and sealed it for ages. Obviously, the Celestial Emperor wanted to find someone who could pull out the sword. Only the person who can pull out the sword is qualified to wield that sword. This is the Celestial Emperor's intention. And your Hung family, if you are really the descendant of the Celestial Emperor, you should respect the Celestial Emperor's intention and not go against the will of your ancestors. Lu Ming continued to speak. His sonorous and powerful voice made many people ponder. That's right. If that sword was really left behind by the Celestial Emperor, why didn't he just leave it for the Hung family? Why did he stick it on that platform and let others pull it out? In other words, only the person who pulled it out was qualified to wield the Celestial Emperor's sword. This was the Celestial Emperor's true intention. You have a glib tongue, and you are distorting the truth. Lu Ming, with your cultivation, I didn't want to bully you. But today, since you are courting death, I will grant you your wish. Xinghe shouted, and then took a step forward. Boom! A terrifying aura blossomed from his body. A mysterious and terrifying law revolved around his body. It was one of the 10 strongest laws, the Eternal Law. Eternal, eternal, immortal, eternal. The Eternal Law was somewhat similar to Huang Ling's Undying Flame Law, but its power was much stronger than the Undying Flame Law. The Eternal Law not only allowed the person who controlled it to have an extremely strong vitality, but it also had terrifying offensive power. Boom! Xinghe took a step forward and quickly approached Lu Ming. He then struck out with his palm, and a palm print blasted toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's pupils contracted as he felt a terrifying pressure. Xinghe's cultivation was too strong. The power of his palm had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Chaotic Calamity Finger. Lu Ming roared and circulated his cultivation to the extreme. The Chaotic Calamity Finger, which was 90% complete, shot out. At the same time, spots of light lit up all over his body. More than 200 sacred weapons flew out and floated around Lu Ming, forming a defensive force. Boom! The Chaotic Calamity Finger collided with Xinghe's palm print. Bam! The 90% complete Chaotic Calamity Finger couldn't withstand more than a few blows before it exploded. The terrifying power surged toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming threw out a series of punches. At the same time, more than 200 sacred weapons blocked in front of him. However, when the palm print blasted over, Lu Ming's body shook violently. More than 200 sacred weapons buzzed, and his body flew far away. Lu Ming was no match for Xinghe at all. The difference in cultivation was too great. They are both Elysian children, but Xinghe's cultivation is much higher. Lu Ming is no match for him at all. That's natural. As Elysian children, they usually fight at the same level. With a difference in cultivation, there's no point in fighting. Today, I'm afraid Lu Ming won't be able to keep the sword of the Celestial Emperor. Some people around sighed. Although Lu Ming's combat strength was strong, Xinghe was an eternal child, and his combat strength wasn't weak either. In the case of a much higher cultivation, Lu Ming was no match for him at all. Lu Ming, hand over the sword of the Celestial Emperor, and I'll spare your life. Xinghe put his hands behind his back and stepped toward Lu Ming with an invincible spirit. Boom! Xinghe took a step, and an incomparably huge foot descended from the sky toward Lu Ming. Don't you dare hurt the young master. A delicate voice rang out as a figure rushed into the sky. It was Autumn Moon. At this moment, Autumn Moon's glabella shone, and the imperial weapon, the yin-yang wheel, appeared and blasted toward the huge foot. Chapter 1909. Oh no! Lu Ming's face fell. He had not expected Qiu Autumn Moon and Huang Ling to rush out. With Qiu Autumn Moon and Huang Ling's combat strength, they were no match for Xinghe even if they had imperial weapons. As expected, when the giant foot landed, Qiu Autumn Moon and Huang Ling's bodies trembled. They grunted and flew back, landing beside Lu Ming. Their faces were pale, and blood was flowing out of their mouths. Qiu Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, are you all right? Lu Ming asked worriedly. Young master, I'm fine. I want to fight alongside you. Qiu Autumn Moon wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and stood beside Lu Ming with determination. On the other side, Huang Ling did not speak, but the immortal flame on her body burned even more fiercely. Hee hee, how can two girls stop me? Xinghe sneered and continued to step forward. His aura was getting more and more terrifying. Count me in if you want to scold me. A burly figure appeared beside Huang Ling. It was Huang Li. His muscles bulged as he circulated the law of strength throughout his body. He wore a pair of black gloves in his hands. The gloves were also imperial weapons. Swoosh. Another figure flashed past, and Long Chen appeared beside Qiu Autumn Moon. His arms bulged and his aura was terrifying. Qiu Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, Long Chen, Huang Li and Lu Ming, 4 king bodies and 1 son of chaos, stood side by side. They were all paragon saints at the initial stage. Their auras combined to fight against Xinghe's aura. Count us in. The other elites of the desolate tribe, Mu Qingxue, and the others also wanted to step forward. Don't come up. Lu Ming waved his hand and stopped Huang Li and the others. Against an opponent like Xinghe, numbers were not enough. If they were not strong enough, it would be useless no matter how many of them went up. Are you trying to bully us with numbers? Do you think we are all alone? Another genius from the Hung family roared as he stepped forwards. The other geniuses from the Hung family also stepped forwards. Back off. You don't have to interfere. Hung Xinghe waved his hand and said to the other sky prides of the Hung clan. He was proud. With his cultivation, why would he need the help of others to deal with Lu Ming and the others? He glanced at Lu Ming and the others and said calmly, "How naive of you to think that the 5 of you can stand against me." Around them, the others also sighed. Lu Ming's lineup could be said to be luxurious. The 4 king bodies and the son of chaos had all reached the absolute saint realm. However, they were facing the eternal son Hung Xinghe. Hung Xinghe was ranked first on the King Sage board, and no one had any objections. He was publicly acknowledged as the strongest person in the younger generation of Yuan Mountain. Even the son of Death, Death Blade, could not shake the position of the Stellar River. Although Lu Ming's team of 5 was a luxurious lineup, their cultivation was still a little weak. Could they really fight against Xinghe? What if you include me? At this moment a deep voice resounded. A tall and slender figure stepped out from the crowd. It's Ouyang Wushuang. Someone recognized the newcomer. Ouyang Wushuang came to Lu Ming's side, and a powerful aura erupted from his body. An absolute saint. Obviously, Ouyang Wushuang had also broken through to the absolute saint realm. Then let's add my little sister. At this moment another voice rang out. A graceful figure stepped through the void and landed beside Lu Ming's team. Luo Tianyi. Ouyang Wushuang and Luo Tianyi are actually helping Lu Ming. Are they all familiar with Lu Ming? 6 king bodies and 1 son of chaos. This lineup is really amazing. Many people gasped, unable to calm down. Luo Tianyi and Ouyang Wushuang were also familiar with Lu Ming. At this moment, they were going to fight against Xinghe with Lu Ming's team. Very good, very good. Then let me see how strong you are. Xinghe's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He suddenly took a step forward, and the void under his feet kept shaking. Heavenly illusion. Luo Tianyi yelled. Her eyes turned into 2 pitch-black whirlpools. She used the heavenly illusion spell to envelop Xinghe, trying to make him fall into the illusion. At this moment, Luo Tianyi's true cultivation was revealed. She had actually reached the absolute saint realm, and seemed to have reached the limit of the absolute saint realm. She was not far from the pinnacle of the absolute saint realm. As expected, Xinghe's body shook slightly and he stopped. The moment Luo Tianyi attacked, Lu Ming, Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, Huang Li, Long Chen, and Ouyang Wushuang all attacked at the same time. 6 terrifying superpowers exploded at the same time and blasted toward Xinghe. When the 6 of them joined forces, the shockwaves caused by them were earth-shattering and shocking. A mere illusion can't stop me. Break. Xinghe's indifferent voice rang out. His eyes were as bright as stars. 2 terrifying sword lights burst out from his eyes and slashed toward the void. Luo Tianyi yelled. Her body shook and she kept retreating. Her face was pale, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her illusion was broken by Xinghe. She suffered a backlash and was injured. At the same time, a sword light formed in Xinghe's hand, and he slashed it out. Whoosh! The sword light was like a flying immortal. It cut through the void and turned into eternity. It was unparalleled. Boom! 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 As the sword light slashed through, Lu Ming and the others' attacks all collapsed in the air. They were all split apart by the sword light. "Oh no, retreat!" Lu Ming shouted. The 6 of them quickly retreated to avoid the sword light's aftershock. So powerful. Lu Ming's eyes were solemn. Xinghe's combat strength was indeed terrifying and unrivaled. The main reason was that their cultivation was too low. They were far inferior to Xinghe. What's the use of having more people? Xinghe clenched his fist. The eternal law formed a sword light and pressed toward Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming's glabella shone, and the Tai Chi formation plate floated out. Autumn Moon and the others also took out their imperial weapons. Chaotic Calamity Finger. This time, Lu Ming took the initiative to launch an attack. He blasted out a Chaotic Tribulation Finger with all his might. At the same time, his figure moved, and he charged toward the Stellar River at top speed. Endless runes emanated from his left hand, forming a sealing force that spread toward the Stellar River. At the same time, the Tai Chi Yin-Yang pattern appeared on the Tai Chi formation plate. It turned into 2 Yin-Yang fish swords and slashed toward Xinghe. A series of attacks rained down like a violent storm. Even an ordinary perfected absolute saint would have no choice but to die under this wave of attacks. When Lu Ming launched his attack, the others also launched their attacks. Illusory reality, Luo Tianyi shouted. Butterflies appeared in the sky. They flapped their wings and flew toward Xinghe. These butterflies were formed by an illusion. They could be real or fake. They were very powerful. Qiu Yu and the others also attacked the Stellar River together. What a terrifying attack. The surrounding geniuses were all shocked. With so many people attacking together, no one was confident that they could block it. Not even the top geniuses on the King Sage board. Child's play. Xinghe's expression did not change. He slashed out with his sword light. Instantly, 9 sword lights slashed toward Lu Ming and the others. 3 of the sword lights slashed toward Lu Ming. Chapter 1910. The chaotic finger of calamity was the first to be cut open. Then the yin-yang fish sword and the sealing power of the array law were broken one by one. Luo Tianyi, Autumn Moon, and the others' attacks were the same. As the sword light slashed, everyone retreated quickly. So powerful. The surrounding people were shocked. Xinghe was too powerful. Lu Ming and the other experts were still no match for him, even when they joined forces. Xinghe's cultivation is at least at the peak of the absolute saint realm. Coupled with the eternal body, his combat power is too strong. Long Chen said, and transmitted his voice to everyone. Indeed, their cultivation was too weak. It was impossible for them to match him. Xinghe was not an ordinary warrior. He was the eternal sun, almost invincible in the battle of the same level. Needless to say, his cultivation was so much higher than theirs. Lu Ming, hand over the sword of the Celestial Emperor. You are not qualified to wield the sword of the Celestial Emperor. Xinghe said coldly. Xinghe, your cultivation is just a little higher. If we fight at the same level, I will still defeat you. Lu Ming said. Defeat me? Haha, Lu Ming, let me tell you. Even if you control the law of chaos, you are no match for me at the same level. However, you don't have to provoke me to fight at the same level. Having a higher cultivation is also a kind of strength. Xinghe said as he stepped forward. A terrifying sword will burst out from his body and pierce the sky. The sword will was vast and mighty, forming a terrible pressure. He had the strength to crush others. Why would he fight at the same level as Lu Ming? This kind of provocation had no effect on him. Lu Ming, since you don't want to hand over the sword of the Celestial Emperor, I will take it myself. Xinghe said coldly. The sword light in his hand was raised high, and his aura was getting stronger. However, at this moment, a transparent bubble suddenly appeared on Xinghe's body and enveloped him within. The law of space and time. Xinghe's face changed and he shouted angrily. Do it. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He knew that the bubble had made a move. Looking at the fluctuation of the law of space and time, it was extremely powerful. Obviously, the bubble had also broken through to the absolute saint realm. Lu Ming and the others once again joined forces and blasted out a terrible attack. Break! A terrifying sword light burst out from Xinghe's body, breaking the transparent bubble in one fell swoop. However, The surrounding space kept rippling and twisting like water waves, trying to trap Xinghe in the void. At the same time, the power of time acted on Xinghe's body, slowing down his movements. Xinghe's expression finally changed. The space-time laws were also one of the 10 strongest laws. Moreover, they had endless transformations, and were best at trapping enemies. With the help of the space-time laws, Lu Ming and the others would be able to unleash their strength to a greater extent, as well as Lu Ming and the others. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming and the others' attacks arrived. They were about to drown the stellar river. Boom! At this moment, an even more powerful and terrifying aura erupted from Xinghe's body. A terrifying divine light burst forth, and the space-time laws that enveloped his body instantly collapsed. The attacks of Lu Ming and the others also collapsed under the impact of this light. Eternal divine light. Also, Xinghe's cultivation is at the peak of the absolute saint realm. Around him, many people cried out, "Is this Xinghe's true cultivation?" Lu Ming and the others looked extremely solemn. In the previous battle, Xinghe had not used his full strength at all. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the absolute saint realm. How terrifying was this at such a young age? As long as he perfected the eternal law and reached the peak of the absolute saint realm, he would be able to enter the quasi-emperor realm and begin to break through to the martial emperor realm. Since ancient times, there had not been many people who had entered the martial emperor realm under the age of 50 who could compete with the almighties of the ancient era. Whoosh! A figure flashed, and Bubbles appeared on Lu Ming's shoulder. That person is so strong. Bubbles can't trap him. Chirp chirp. Very good. You're not bad. Since you forced me to use my full strength, then you'll have to suffer my wrath. Xinghe said coldly, revealing a cold murderous intent. A real battle sword appeared in his hand. It was an imperial weapon, and its sword chi soared into the sky. At this moment, Xinghe's cultivation of the absolute saint realm was fully unleashed, and his aura was terrifying. It's over. Lu Ming and the others are doomed. Although they're strong, they're no match for Xinghe. Indeed, but Lu Ming's lineup is too terrifying. There's someone who can control the laws of time and space. If these people grow up, how terrifying will they be? Will Xinghe kill them here? It's hard to say. The scene today had far exceeded everyone's expectations, and they were so nervous that they found it hard to breathe. In the beginning, Luo Tsangchong had found trouble with Lu Ming, but he had been defeated by Lu Ming. Then, Xinghe had made a move, and the number of experts on Lu Ming's side continued to increase. So far, there were already 6 people with imperial bodies, and 2 sons of heaven. How powerful was this lineup? This made the faces of many powerful geniuses turn solemn. If these people's cultivation increased, who would be their match? Damn it! I hope Xinghe can kill these people. Luo Tsangqiong was also shocked. He had never thought that Lu Ming could gather so many terrifying geniuses. Swoosh! Xinghe took a step forward, and his figure suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, a terrifying sword light slashed toward Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming and the others' hearts beat rapidly. They felt a terrible danger from the sword light. Let's join forces, Lu Ming shouted. In the face of this attack, they could only block it by gathering all their strength. The great defying cauldron flew out from between Lu Ming's eyebrows, and the 2 saint hearts in his dantian were operating at full force. Majestic saint force poured into the great defying cauldron, causing it to expand to the size of a mountain. But just as Lu Ming and the others were about to give it their all, a dark saber light cut through the void in the distance and slashed violently toward them. This saber light was filled with the aura of death, as if it wanted to plunge all living things in the world into death. Clang! The sword light and saber light collided, and then exploded. Terrifying sword chi and saber light swept out in all directions. Swoosh! A figure flashed, and a young man in a black robe stepped forward and appeared in front of Xinghe. He held a saber in his arms, and his entire body was filled with a strong aura of death. It's Death Blade. Death Blade actually attacked Xinghe. Could it be that Death Blade is also familiar with Lu Ming and the others? Seeing this young man, many people were shocked. The son of Death, Death Blade, had also attacked Xinghe. Death Blade? Are you also going to help Lu Ming and the others? Xinghe's eyes narrowed slightly, and a sharp light flashed in them. No. Deathblade shook his head and said, I only attacked because I don't like you. His words made many people speechless. Deathblade attacked because he didn't like Xinghe? Lu Ming's eyes moved, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 1911. However, Deathblade was a proud man. He was the son of Death, so he wouldn't admit it. He had to listen to Lu Ming's orders. If Deathblade didn't say it, Lu Ming wouldn't say it either. Deathblade, it's still too early for you to stop me with your current cultivation, Hung Xinghe said coldly. Deathblade was at the peak of the Absolute Saint Realm, while Hung Xinghe was at the peak of the Absolute Saint Realm. Deathblade was no match for him. How would we know if we don't fight? Deathblade said. The death chi on his body became thicker. If you want to fight, I'll grant you your wish, Hung Xinghe said coldly. Eternal divine light became brighter. The peerless sword light was extremely sharp. It could explode at any time. Hung Xinghe, our battle isn't over yet. Lu Ming stepped forward. At this moment, Lu Ming's black hair turned blood red. His eyes also turned blood red. A bone-chilling murderous intent radiated from Lu Ming's body. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to have turned into a god of death. This was the power of the third bloodline. Lu Ming hadn't used the third bloodline for a long time. The power of the third bloodline was too strange. Lu Ming used it less and less. But today he had to use it. With the help of the third bloodline, Lu Ming's aura surged. After a few steps, Lu Ming stood side by side with Deathblade. Attack hit the sky. Chirp. Bubbles mumbled. She strode forward with her small feet and followed Lu Ming. As her figure walked past, the void was distorted like water ripples. It was as if her body was no longer there. It was as if she was in another space-time. In addition, Autumn Moon, Luo Tianyi, and the others also stepped forward. Their auras were shocking. Kill. Deathblade was the first to attack. His sword of death slashed toward Hung Xinghe. Wherever the sword light passed, the world was silent. Boom. Lu Ming was the second to attack. He swung the Great Development Cauldron. Majestic power poured into the cauldron and smashed it toward Hung Xinghe. Then Bubbles, Autumn Moon, and the others attacked at the same time. The attack this time was truly shocking. Today, I will show you what it means to be the strongest. The stellar river roared as its sword lights continuously shot out. Hundreds of sword lights shot towards Lu Ming and the others. The Deathblade's blade of death continued to vibrate. More and more blade lights appeared, and a small portion of the sword lights were blocked by him. As for the great pill derivation furnace in Lu Ming's hand, it was as large as a mountain. Every time it smashed down, a large area of sword light would be destroyed. As for Bubbles, Autumn Moon, and the others, they worked together to block the remaining sword lights. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying battle broke out. The top 10 geniuses fought with all their might. Terrifying rumbling sounds could be heard everywhere. The entire Yuanshan Sacred Academy was shaken. However, after Lu Ming used his third bloodline, and the Death Blade joined the battle, they were finally able to fight evenly against Stellar River. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of moves, but the outcome was still undecided. Stellar River unleashed his terrifying combat strength to the extreme, but he couldn't do anything to Lu Ming and the others. Stellar River's advantage was his cultivation. His cultivation was high. As for Lu Ming and the others, they had more people. With different types of laws, their power was extremely shocking. Devour. In the midst of the battle, Lu Ming opened the lid of the Great Pill Derivation Furnace. The Great Pill Derivation Furnace erupted with a powerful devouring power, wanting to devour Stellar River. Stellar River roared. An eternal divine light erupted, tearing apart the devouring power of the furnace. However, in the next moment, he was enveloped by Bubble's space-time laws, and his body became sluggish. Whoosh! The Death Blade's blade of death slashed over, almost hitting Stellar River. He narrowly avoided it, and at the same time, broke through the attacks of Autumn Moon and the others. He slashed out a few terrifying sword lights towards Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, and the others. However, Bubble's space-time laws enveloped Autumn Moon and the others. Their bodies trembled, and they avoided Stellar River's sword lights. Bubble's space-time laws had a great supporting ability in a battle. Moreover, its attack power was also very terrifying, making it impossible to guard against. As time passed, the battle became more intense. In the battlefield, all kinds of dazzling lights erupted, colliding with each other, and rumbling sounds continued. The battle continued for about 100 moves, but the outcome was still undecided. Boom! Stellar River, Lu Ming, Deathblade, and the others collided, and their bodies flew far away. His face was particularly gloomy. Today's matter seemed to be out of his control. He was only dealing with Lu Ming, but he was besieged by so many people. Each of them was a terrifying genius. Lu Ming, let me tell you, my Hung family is determined to get the Heavenly Emperor's sword. You people can't protect it. Stellar River said coldly. That's right, my Hung family is determined to get the Heavenly Emperor's sword. As soon as Stellar River's voice fell, a voice came from outside the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard. Then a suffocating pressure spread out from that direction. Then, the crowd saw 3 old men walking over in the air. There was a divine light revolving around each of the 3 old men. Many people's pupils shrank, because that was the divine light of the world. It meant that these 3 old men were true emperors. The 3 old men stood in the air, surrounded by the divine light of the world, like 3 gods. An incomparably terrifying pressure constantly spread out, and all the geniuses present felt like there was a mountain pressing down on them. Elders! Stellar River cupped his fists at the 3 old men. Lu Ming, hand over the Heavenly Emperor's sword to us. This is the Heavenly Emperor's personal sword. You are not qualified to wield it. The old man in the middle said, looking at Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt a strong pressure on his body, and his body couldn't help but retreat. If the young can't do it, the old man will do it? Sure enough, this is the style of a major force. Lu Ming said with a hint of mockery. That's right. You true emperors want to intervene in the affairs of the younger generation, too shameful. At this time, a voice came from the depths of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard. When the voice fell, several figures appeared in the void. These figures were surrounded by the divine light of the world, and they were also true emperors. They were the teachers of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard. Most of the teachers of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard didn't come from any major forces. Most of them were lone wolves, or lived in seclusion. In the end, they were invited by the 3 great emperors to become the teachers of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard, and jointly manage it. The true emperors of the Hung clan had an ugly expression. They originally wanted Stellar River to take the Heavenly Emperor's sword from Lu Ming's hand, but they didn't expect that Stellar River couldn't do it. They had no choice but to step in. They also thought that the teachers of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard would intervene in this matter. This is the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard, please leave. A teacher of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard directly ordered the guests to leave. We must take the Heavenly Emperor's sword. A true emperor of the Hung clan said. The Heavenly Emperor's sword was pulled out by Lu Ming, so it naturally belongs to him. You don't have the ability to pull it out, yet you want to take it for free? Isn't it laughable? You call yourselves the descendants of the Heavenly Emperor. Chapter 1912. The true emperors from the Hung clan had a dark expression. If it was someone from another faction who dared to speak to them like this, they would have been annihilated by them. However, the other party was a teacher of the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard. The Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard was founded by 3 great sovereigns. Although their Hung clan was powerful, they did not dare to go against the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard. The Hung true emperors shifted their gazes and messaged each other, discussing something. After a while, a true emperor from the Hung clan said, Lu Ming, you can keep the Heavenly Emperor's sword, but you must give us the cultivation method. Hung Xinghe's eyes flashed sharply after hearing this. He once said that Heavenly Emperor's sword would be his sword, but now, Lu Ming had to keep it. This made him very unhappy. The few teachers from Yuan Shan Sacred Academy also had a change in their eyes. Obviously, the Hung family had given in. They looked at Lu Ming and one of them said, Lu Ming, what do you think? There's no merit laws in the sword. How can I give it to you? Lu Ming said. After he pulled out the sword of the celestial arch, He did not discover any abnormalities at all. It was like an ordinary stone sword. It only appeared in the sword tomb, and took the initiative to appear. It saved Lu Ming once, and even absorbed a large amount of sword origins. Lu Ming, don't push your luck. Our Hung clan has already given in. Being too greedy will only bring about your own destruction. Hung Xinghe shouted. The true emperors from the Hung clan had a cold glint in their eyes. In their opinion, they had already given in, but Lu Ming's greed was insatiable. He didn't even want to hand over the merit laws of Heavenly Emperor's sword. Lu Ming, the merit laws in Heavenly Emperor's sword are very important to our clan. That's right, young people should know when to stop. It'll be a shame if you die halfway through your cultivation. The true emperors from the Hung clan spoke one after another. Their threat was self-evident. I told you, there's no merit laws in the sword. Lu Ming repeated. You still dare to deny it? One of the true emperors from the Hung clan shouted. Rolling thunder rumbled, and formed a terrifying storm that pressed down on Lu Ming. A teacher from Origin Mountain Sacred Institution frowned, and took a step forward. A force rushed out and destroyed the thunderous attack. A true emperor is going too far. The teacher from Origin Mountain Sacred Institution frowned and looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming, you really didn't find any merit laws in the sword? No, there's nothing wrong with the sword after I got it. It's just an ordinary stone sword. Lu Ming said. Quibble. My Hung clan's ancient records state that the Celestial Emperor's sword contains a cultivation technique left behind by the Celestial Emperor. True emperors from the Hung clan shouted. Hung clan. Lu Ming sneered. The furious true emperor from the Hung clan unleashed a terrifying aura and stepped forward. The Hung clan had always prided itself on being a descendant of the Celestial Emperor. Now, Lu Ming dared to say that they weren't a descendant of the Celestial Emperor. They couldn't establish their prestige without killing. Enough! At this time, an old voice came from the depths of Yuan Mountain Holy Court. The voice sounded gentle to the geniuses of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. However, it was thunderous to the Hung clan true emperor. The Hung clan true emperor trembled and frantically retreated. His expression changed drastically as he almost vomited blood. Grand Emperor! The Hung clan true emperor cried out in horror. It's Grand Emperor Wuxia. When Lu Ming and the rest heard that, they knew that it was Emperor Wuxia. Previously, when Emperor Wuxia was preaching, they naturally recognized his voice. Who would have thought that Grand Emperor Wuxia would show up? This is Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. All of you leave. Grand Emperor Wuxia's voice sounded again. Though he didn't use any harsh words, his majesty was unquestionable. The three Hung clan true emperors had an ugly expression. However, this was Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. How could they not retreat when Grand Emperor Wuxia had spoken? True emperors were lofty existences in the eyes of other cultivators. However, they were like babies in front of a Grand Emperor. Wuxia. At this moment, outside the sacred courtyard of Yuan Mountain, an old voice came from an unknown distance away. Ancestor. The three Hung clan true emperors were overjoyed after hearing the voice. Many people were shaken. The three true emperors from the Hung clan called him an ancestor, and he dared to call Emperor Formless by name. There was only one possibility. He was also a Grand Emperor. There was a rumor that the Hung clan had a Grand Emperor. Wuxia. The Heavenly Emperor's sword is related to an important merit law of the Hung clan. Do you really want to interfere? The voice came from an unknown distance outside of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution again. No matter what the reason is, since this is Origin Mountain Sacred Institution, and Lu Ming is a disciple of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution, I will protect him. It's the same for any other disciple of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. If someone dares to move the galaxy in Origin Mountain Sacred Institution, I will do the same. Grand Emperor Wuxia's voice was firm and unquestionable. As long as one was a disciple of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution, he would protect them regardless of who they were. Haha. The Hung clan great emperor sneered and said, Wuxia, we haven't seen each other for many years. I wonder how much progress you've made. Why don't we spar? That's what I was thinking. I also want to see how much progress you've made. Grand Emperor Wuxiang said. Many people were shocked. The two Grand Emperors were about to fight. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event. Boom! Boom! Terrifying pressure emanated from the direction of Hung Clan and the depths of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. Then, two rays of light flashed and rushed into the sky. Wherever the light passed, the space was torn apart. Two figures rushed into the crack in the void. Boom! Then a terrifying vibration came out from the void. The entire sky seemed to be shaking crazily. A dull pressure came from the sky, making people feel that the world was about to be overturned and destroyed. The Grand Emperors were fighting in the void. If the Grand Emperors were to fight in Celestial City, the world would be turned upside down. Celestial City would be destroyed and countless people would be affected. Boom! Boom! In the void there were continuous explosions. The space rippled like water. Then, a series of ferocious spatial cracks appeared in the void like a spider web, densely covering the entire void. So terrifying. Many people felt their heartbeat accelerate. Their muscles were tense, and they were extremely nervous. It was too terrifying. Even if they were fighting in the void, the scene was still earth-shattering. Everyone felt that a great disaster was about to befall them. The Grand Emperor's small worlds could give birth to living beings and control the Grand Tao. They were too powerful. True emperors were as weak as babies in front of them. In the era when celestial emperors did not appear, the Grand Emperors were the top existences in the world. Chapter 1913. The battle between the great emperors did not last long. After a few minutes, the ripples in the void suddenly stopped. Those spatial rifts also disappeared. They stopped. Who won? Was it the Hung Clan's Great Emperor or Great Emperor Wuxiang? Withdraw from the Sacred Academy and send people to guard outside. If Lu Ming comes out, take him down. The voice of the Hung Clan's Great Emperor came from the direction of the Hung Clan. The Hung Clan was going to withdraw from the Sacred Academy. Many people's eyes flashed. Did the Hung Clan's Great Emperor lose? It was very likely. If the Hung Clan's Great Emperor won, why would he withdraw from the Sacred Academy so easily? Yes. The three Hung Clan's true emperors took the order and glanced coldly at Lu Ming, then stepped out and left the Sacred Academy. Xinghe's eyes were filled with unwillingness. At this time, a figure appeared in the sky. It was Great Emperor Wuxiang. Greetings, Great Emperor. Everyone bowed to greet Great Emperor Wuxiang. Now I have an announcement. Great Emperor Wuxiang's eyes were no longer gentle, but filled with a sharp light. Those who were swept by his eyes felt their heart beat faster. From tomorrow onwards, the rules of the Sacred Academy will change. From now on, there will be no killing in the Sacred Academy. In other words, there will be no rules in the Sacred Academy. Great Emperor Wuxiang's voice sounded. Many people were shocked. From tomorrow onwards, there will be no killing in the Sacred Academy. There will be no rules. This will certainly lead to earth-shattering changes in the Sacred Academy. In the past, killing and crippling other people's cultivation were prohibited in the Sacred Academy. If one wanted to fight to the death, one would have to go to the life and death arena. If one did not go to the life and death arena, they would be safe in the Sacred Academy. At least, they would not have to worry about their lives. But all of this will change. From now on, the teachers of the Sacred Academy will not care about your matters. Of course, all of this is the internal affairs of the Sacred Academy. If any outside forces interfere, we will strike with lightning. Also, I have placed 4 sets of array discs in the Saint battlefield. Each set of array discs can cover an area of 100 miles. Only martial emperors can break it. After saying this, Great Emperor Wuxiang's figure blurred like a phantom and disappeared without a trace. Little guys, take care of yourselves. Several teachers of the Sacred Academy glanced at the crowd and left one after another, disappearing into the depths of the Sacred Academy. As soon as the teacher of the Saint Academy left, the atmosphere on the scene became extremely solemn. Everyone looked at each other, their eyes filled with seriousness and vigilance. From tomorrow onwards, killing would no longer be prohibited. Those who had enmity with each other would look at each other with cold, killing intent. Luo Zhangchong, Xinghe, and the others glanced at Lu Ming and the others with undisguised killing intent. Lu Ming, just you wait. Heng Xinghe spoke coldly. With a flash of his body, he was the first to leave this place. After Stellar River left, the death blade turned into a blade light and disappeared. This caused the eyes of some of the stronger geniuses to flicker. From the looks of it, Deathblade wasn't on Lu Ming's side. Just as Deathblade had said, Deathblade had only attacked because he didn't like Stellar River. Especially some of the stronger geniuses, they let out a long sigh in their hearts. If Deathblade was on Lu Ming's side, then the strength of Lu Ming's group was too amazing. They could fight against Stellar River when they joined forces. They were almost invincible in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain. However, without Deathblade, the strength of Lu Ming's group was greatly reduced. That bastard Deathblade left without even saying goodbye. Huang Ling muttered unhappily. Lu Ming smiled slightly and didn't care too much. As the son of Death, Deathblade naturally had his pride. He was not convinced by Lu Ming at all. He most likely wanted to wait for 20 years to pass before challenging Lu Ming and replacing Lu Ming's status as the Golden Inheritor. However, Lu Ming was confident that within 20 years, he would definitely convince Deathblade. Let's go back, Lu Ming said. Together with Qiu Yu, Huang Ling, Long Chun, and the rest, they stepped into the air and left the place. Then, the others left one after another. From tomorrow onwards, the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain would no longer prohibit killing. Naturally, they had to prepare early. In Lu Ming's residence, in a courtyard, everyone gathered to discuss matters. From tomorrow onwards, the situation in the Sacred Academy will definitely change greatly. How should we face it? Someone asked. We'd better all gather together and concentrate our strength to avoid being defeated one by one, Lu Ming said, then looked at Ouyang Wushuang and Luo Tianyi and said, Ouyang Tianyi, bring all the people you can bring here. We'll gather together. Okay. Ouyang Wushuang and Luo Tianyi nodded and agreed without hesitation. Other than Huang Ling and Long Chun, the others were surprised. Luo Tianyi and Ouyang Wushuang seemed to be very obedient to Lu Ming's words, which shocked them. During this period, we'd better not go to those cultivation places to cultivate. Wait until the situation stabilizes, then we'll make plans, Lu Ming suggested. Everyone nodded. Now this was the best choice. The mountain was very large, so everyone chose to stay in the courtyard. A day passed in the blink of an eye. From the second day onwards, the atmosphere in the entire Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain became tense and vigilant. It had been almost a year since the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain was held. Many people had grudges with each other. In the past, they could not kill each other. At most, they could teach each other a lesson to vent their anger. But now it was different. Sure enough, in just a few days the killing began. Some of the prodigies were killed on the spot by their opponents. This also opened the curtain of chaos in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain. A fierce battle began. Boom! Not far from the mountain where Lu Ming and the others lived on a mountain peak, there was a shocking explosion. Two figures rushed out of the mountain peak and began to fight fiercely. However, the battle did not last long. A terrifying sword light slashed across, and a young prodigy was cut in half and died there. The other prodigy took the young prodigy's storage ring, turned into a sword light, and disappeared. In this way, I wonder how many prodigies will fall. A few figures stood in the air and watched. They were Lu Ming, Huang Ling, Luo Tianyi, and the others. Huang Ling sighed slightly. Perhaps, this is the strategy of the great emperors. Only by facing danger at all times can one explore their own potential faster and more thoroughly and break through to a higher realm. Luo Tianyi said. The others nodded, but the price of this method was very high. I don't know why the great emperors held the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain to cultivate so many prodigies. Lu Ming asked and asked. The others were silent. In fact, this was also the question in everyone's mind. Why did the great emperors spend so much effort to gather so many prodigies and cultivate them? Chapter 1914. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. As time passed, the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain became even more chaotic. There were battles and killings every day. Every day there were geniuses who died. However, no one bothered Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming and the others had many geniuses. When they gathered together, they were very terrifying. Naturally, no one would pay attention to them for the time being. As time passed, many people began to gather and form groups to fight against the powerful enemies. Even so, there were still powerful geniuses who directly attacked a certain group and killed all of them. The atmosphere in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain was extremely oppressive. Under such circumstances, some geniuses left the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain. However, those who left were only a minority. The various cultivation places in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain were too attractive. Moreover, there was a great emperor's preaching. Where could one find such cultivation conditions? Although it was dangerous in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain, one's progress was also the fastest. Leaving the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain, one's cultivation speed would definitely not be able to keep up with the cultivation in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain. Everyone was a genius. Once the gap was widened, it would be difficult to catch up. The path of cultivation was like walking against the current. If one did not advance, one would fall behind. Once one fell behind, one would not be able to catch up with the other geniuses in the future. Even one's own achievements would be affected. In the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain, one might be able to continuously unearth one's potential and make breakthroughs. Their future achievements were unpredictable. However, it was not certain if they left. Thus, only a small number of people left. Many more people stayed behind. Huang Kong, a genius from the Phoenix Palace, once competed with Huang Ling for the Heart of Parasol Tree, but they later reconciled. On this day, he met up with a few geniuses from the Divine Elephant Sect and Phoenix Palace. They arrived at the Divine Abilities Purgatory Valley, intending to cultivate their divine abilities there. However, they were stopped outside the valley. Stop! The Divine Ability Purgatory Valley has been reserved by the Sky Knife Alliance. No one else is allowed to enter. Outside the Divine Ability Purgatory Valley, a few young men stopped Huang Kong and the others. The Sky Knife Alliance? Reserved by you? Huang Kong and the others were stunned. That's right. Now get lost. A young man on the other side was extremely arrogant. How dare you? The Divine Ability Purgatory Valley was created by the great emperor of the Sacred Academy. Everyone who entered the Sacred Academy's Divine Ability Purgatory Valley, a genius from the Divine Elephant Sect, was furious. That's right, you should be the ones to scram. A Phoenix Palace disciple berated. Since they don't want to leave, I'll just kill them. A cold voice came from the Purgatory Valley. A young man in a long golden robe stepped out with a few other young men, with a cold expression. Huang Kong and the others had ugly expressions on their faces. If you want to fight, we have nothing to fear. Let's go. Huang Kong said, wishing to withdraw first and report this matter to Lu Ming and the others. Did I say you could leave? Attack. Kill them all. The young man in the golden robe was extremely overbearing. A golden battle saber appeared in his hand, and he slashed at Huang Kong and the others. This person's cultivation was very strong. He was at the pinnacle of the Great Saint Realm. As for Huang Kong and the others, the one with the highest cultivation was Huang Kong, who was only a great sage, great mastery. Not good retreat. Huang Kong shouted. He did not expect the other party to be so domineering, attacking them directly and wanting to kill them. However, the other party had more people. Their figures flashed and surrounded them. Pucci! The young man in the golden robe slashed down with his battle saber and killed a Phoenix Palace disciple. Huang Kong's eyes were bloodshot. He shouted, "You killed my Phoenix Palace disciple. Lu Ming and the others will not let you off." What? A Phoenix Palace disciple? The young man in the golden robe and the others were shocked. He did not expect the other party to be a Phoenix Palace disciple. Phoenix Palace represented Lu Ming and the group of elites on Lu Ming's side. The young man in the golden robe broke out in cold sweat when he thought of the combat strength of Lu Ming and the others. However, they had already killed one of their opponents. It was impossible for them to ease the tension. Kill them all. Don't let any of them escape. The young man in the golden robe roared. Since they could not ease the tension, they would kill all of them. That way, no one would know that they were the culprits. Terrifying attacks continued to attack Huang Kong and the others. Huang Kong and the others were outnumbered, and their cultivation was weaker than the other party. They could not withstand the attacks at all, and were killed one by one. Soon, Huang Kong was the only one left. Kill! Kill! The young man in the golden robe continued to attack Huang Kong with his saber. Soon, a long saber wound appeared on Huang Kong's body, and his body was almost split into two. If he did not have the phoenix combat body, and the phoenix's ability to rise from the ashes, he would not have been able to fight anymore. A phoenix cry was heard, and a pair of phoenix wings appeared on Huang Kong's back. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and when the blood landed on the phoenix wings, the flames on the phoenix wings burned brightly. Swoosh! Huang Kong risked his injuries and charged out of the encirclement. He flew toward the place where Lu Ming and the others were gathered. Oh no! Chase after him! The young man in the golden robe and the others' faces changed, and they chased after Huang Kong. However, Huang Kong had used a secret skill, and his speed was shocking. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared without a trace. The young man in the golden robe looked terrible. If Lu Ming and the others knew that Huang Kong had escaped, what would happen? Fear flashed in his eyes and he said, "Report to the Alliance leader that Lu Ming and the others are here to fight for the superpower Purgatory Valley." At the mountain where Lu Ming and the others were staying, Lu Ming, Huang Ling, and the others were discussing something. Suddenly, someone rushed in to report. Oh no! Someone has been killed. The person who made the report was a genius from the Phoenix Palace, and he looked furious. What? Lu Ming and the others' faces changed. In a flash, they appeared outside the courtyard and saw Huang Kong sitting cross-legged on the ground. His body was covered in phoenix flames, and his body was covered in blood. Huang Ling's face darkened. She waved her hand, and the undying flame shrouded Huang Kong. With the help of the undying flame, Huang Kong's injuries healed quickly. After a while he was fully recovered. Huang Kong, what happened? Huang Ling asked. Our men have been killed. Huang Kong immediately told her what had happened. The Sky Knife Alliance is courting death. Huang Ling's body emitted a cold killing intent. It seems like someone has started to fight for the cultivation ground. Gather the men and let's go. Lu Ming shouted. Soon Lu Ming, Qiu Moon, Huang Ling, Luo Tianyi, Long Chun, Huang Li, and the others headed toward the superpower Purgatory Valley. They had to avenge the deaths of their men. When Lu Ming and the others arrived at the superpower Purgatory Valley, more than 100 people had gathered outside the valley. It's them. They killed our men without any explanation. Huang Kong pointed at the young man in the golden robe in the crowd. Come out and die. Chapter 1915. Lu Ming, what's the matter that made you so angry? A burly young man stepped out. He was holding a saber, and his eyes were as sharp as a blade. Wei Tiandao, Huang Ling whispered. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. He had heard of Wei Tiandao before. He was ranked 4th on the King's Sage Board, and had a terrifying imperial constitution. His cultivation was unfathomable, and he was even more powerful than Luo Tsangqiong. It seemed that Wei Tiandao was the one who had set up the Sky Saber Alliance. Your people killed our people for no reason. A life for a life. They must die. Lu Ming said coldly. They attacked us first, and we were forced to fight back. The young man in the golden robe shouted. Nonsense, we came to Purgatory Valley to cultivate. You stopped us and said that Purgatory Valley was already occupied by you. Moreover, you attacked us and killed our people without any explanation. If I didn't risk my life to break out, I would have died too. Huang Kong shouted angrily. You are slandering us. The young man in the golden robe said. Lu Ming, it seems that there is a misunderstanding. How about this? I will give you half of the rights to use the Purgatory Valley, and we will let this matter rest. How about that? Wei Tiandao said. You want to let this matter rest so easily after killing our men? Is there something wrong with your brain? Lu Ming scolded him, and a cold killing intent flashed in his eyes. Wei Tiandao's face darkened. He was ranked 4th on the King's Sage Board, and Lu Ming did not give him any face. This made him want to kill him. However, When he looked at Luo Tianyi, Xiao Autumn Moon, Huang Ling and the others, he suppressed the killing intent in his heart. Lu Ming, what do you want? Wei Tiandao asked. It's simple. Those who attacked us will pay with their lives. Also, the Purgatory Valley will belong to us. Lu Ming said coldly. The young man in the golden robe was shocked and shouted, Alliance leader, don't agree. We are doing this for the Alliance. Wei Tiandao's face darkened and he said, Lu Ming, your conditions are too much. Too much. Don't you have to pay the price for killing our people? Lu Ming sneered. Lu Ming, I suggest that we turn this matter into a small one. Once the two sides start fighting, it won't benefit anyone. This time, you don't have the help of the Death Blade. Wei Tiandao spoke, vaguely revealing a trace of threat. In other words, without the help of the Death Blade, if you fight with me, you won't be able to gain anything. Both sides will only suffer. Hehe, you really know how to flatter yourself. Against you, I don't need the help of the Death Blade. If you want to fight, then let's fight. After saying that, Lu Ming took a step forward. A berserk aura burst out and pressed down on Wei Tiandao. At the same time, Luo Tianyi, Autumn Moon, and the others released their auras as well. Whoosh! A shocking saber light erupted from Wei Tiandao's body, piercing through the sky. It was incomparably terrifying. Perfection of the absolute saint realm. Wei Tiandao's cultivation had also reached the complete saint realm. No wonder he was ranked 4th on the King Saint list. The people behind Wei Tiandao also released their auras. 2 of them were also very terrifying. They also had king bodies. The terrifying auras of the two sides clashed in the air. Die! Lu Ming suddenly shouted and pointed out. A chaotic calamity finger formed and attacked Wei Tiandao. Wei Tiandao unsheathed his saber. Just as he was about to attack, a transparent bubble suddenly appeared around him and enveloped him. His body suddenly stiffened. Break! Wei Tiandao roared. Dazzling saber light burst out, trying to break the bubble's space-time rules. But he wasn't Xing Xinghe. Xing Xinghe had the eternal body and the eternal divine light. Together with the eternal rules, he could easily break the bubble's space-time rules. He was only a king body. Although his cultivation was similar to Xing Xinghe's, his combat power was far inferior. He couldn't break the space-time rules in such a short time. Heavenly illusion! Luo Tianyi shouted, and used the heavenly illusion rules. Wei Tiandao immediately fell into an illusion. Break! 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 Wei Tiandao roared. Saber light burst out of his body, trying to break the illusion and space-time rules. At that moment, Lu Ming's attack arrived. Boom! The chaotic calamity finger hit Wei Tiandao. Although Wei Tiandao used his saber light to block it, his body still shook violently, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, as soon as he retreated, another transparent bubble enveloped him. Then, Luo Tianyi's illusion shook his soul again. Although Luo Tianyi's cultivation was at the great accomplishment of the absolute saint realm, her soul was very powerful. It was far beyond her cultivation level. Together with the heavenly illusion rules, it had a great impact on Wei Tiandao. Wei Tiandao had a lot of strength, but he couldn't use it at the moment. Whoosh! Lu Ming stepped forward. The great evolution cauldron appeared in his hand. It rapidly enlarged and smashed toward Wei Tiandao. Bam! Wei Tiandao was smashed. His body hit the ground heavily, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The other members of the Sky Knife Alliance were shocked. The golden-robed young man and the others who had attacked earlier were pale. Wait, stop! Wei Tiandao roared. What do you want to say? Lu Ming stood in the air and looked at Wei Tiandao coldly. Wei Tiandao's eyes flashed with horror. It wasn't until now that he truly understood how terrifying Lu Ming and the others were when they joined forces. Back then, Lu Ming and the others were suppressed by Eternal Galaxy when they joined forces. It wasn't that Lu Ming and the others weren't strong, but that Eternal Galaxy was too strong. It wasn't until they fought that Wei Tiandao realized how terrifying Lu Ming and the others were. With the few of them working together, he couldn't use his strength at all. He could only take a beating. Moreover, there were other people with king bodies who hadn't attacked yet. If they really fought, they would definitely lose. Lu Ming, I agree to your conditions. Wei Tiandao said helplessly. He felt humiliated, but there was nothing he could do in this situation. No, Alliance leader, you have to save us. You have to save us. The golden-robed young man screamed in horror. If Wei Tiandao didn't save them, they would die. You have to bear the consequences of your own actions. Let's go. Wei Tiandao roared and turned to leave. The other members of the Sky Knife Alliance looked at the golden-robed young man, and the others pitifully. Of all the people they could offend, they had to offend Lu Ming and the others. Following that, the other members of the Sky Knife Alliance soared into the air and left as well. No, the golden-robed young man and the others frantically chased after the Sky Knife Alliance members. However, Long Chen's figure suddenly appeared before them. His eyes were cold as he threw a punch. Bang! The golden-robed young man screamed miserably as his body shattered into pieces. The remaining people had even lower cultivations. Long Chen killed all of them in a few moves. The people who attacked earlier were all killed. Chapter 1916. After that, the sacred courtyard of Yuanshan became even more chaotic. Various large groups fought and killed each other in order to compete for those cultivation places. In the sacred courtyard of Yuanshan, the cultivation place was the most important cultivation resource. It was extremely helpful for cultivation. Naturally, the competition was very fierce. And all of this, the teachers of the sacred courtyard of Yuanshan did not interfere. Since that day, the teachers of the sacred courtyard of Yuanshan seemed to have disappeared. Only a few people were left to maintain the operation of those cultivation places. After that, some small groups began to form alliances and gathered into large groups. One by one, alliances began to appear. And the leaders of those alliances were all powerhouses on the King Sage board. The sacred courtyard of Yuanshan did not prohibit killing. 2 months later, dozens of small and large alliances appeared in the sacred courtyard of Yuanshan. In the mountain where Lu Ming and the others lived, everyone gathered again. Lu Ming, should we establish an alliance? Huang Ling was the first to suggest. I also think it's good to establish an alliance. Once we establish an alliance, others will come to join us and increase our strength. Ouyang Wushuang also suggested. Yes, if we establish an alliance, people will come to join us. If we get to know more people now, it will be of great use in the future. Luo Tianyi also said. Then, the others also spoke one after another, feeling that it was time to establish an alliance. However, everyone was waiting for Lu Ming's opinion. During this period, almost everyone had followed Lu Ming's lead. At this moment a message came. Heng Xinghe had successfully obtained a set of array discs in the holy battlefield, covering 100 miles of his residence. At the same time, he had established the Celestial Emperor Alliance. Many people from the small alliances had joined him. Heng Xinghe obtained a set of array discs? Many people's expressions changed. During this period, we sent people to inquire about the holy battlefield's array discs. How is it? Lu Ming asked. During this period, they had also been inquiring about the array discs. At this time, a set of array discs was too useful. A set of array discs could cover 100 miles, and only martial emperors could break it. This was equivalent to having a base, and they were not afraid of being attacked. This was too important for an alliance. This meant that their safety was guaranteed. Usually, they could cultivate in the cultivation place, but it was impossible to stay in the cultivation place all the time. After cultivating for a period of time, they still had to leave the cultivation place and find a place to digest it. Living in the area covered by the array discs, there was no need to worry about their own safety. However, there were only 4 sets of array discs. Once someone obtained one set, many people would join them. Emperor Wu of Yuanshan, the Celestial Emperor Alliance, had left 4 sets of array discs in the holy battlefield of the holy battlefield. However, the holy battlefield was huge. During this time, many people were looking for formation discs. Unexpectedly, Xinghe was 1 step ahead of them and got a formation disc. During this period of time, we have some people Wushuang. Ouyang Wushuang said. Alright, then we'll wait until we get the disc array. Then we'll establish the alliance. Go. Everyone nodded as well. Obtaining the disc array and establishing the alliance would be the best. Hung to Celestial. Hung Xinghe was the first on the King Sage board. Now that they were the first to obtain an array disc, many people joined them. It was said that Luo Tsangqiong, Luo Pokong, and Feng Wuchen from the Feng clan had joined Hung Xinghe. For a time, the Heavenly Emperor Alliance became a Leviathan existence. However, Hung Xinghe did not find trouble with Lu Ming, because he did not know what Deathblade's intentions were. Lu Ming found Luo Xiang alone. He planned to use the Great Pill Development Cauldron to refine Luo Xiang's spiritual body. With Luo Xiang's potential, he would definitely be able to refine his spiritual body to a superior sky spiritual body. When Luo Xiang found out about the effects of the Great Pill Development Cauldron, he was shocked. Then Luo Xiang entered the Great Pill Development Cauldron. Half a month after Hung Xinghe obtained the array disc, the second array disc appeared. It was obtained by the Divine Fire Alliance, led by the second on the King Sage board. The second on the King Sage board was called the Fire Emperor. He was the pride of an ancient clan, the Fire Tribe. After he obtained the array disc, many people joined him. Suddenly, the Divine Fire Alliance became a force second only to the Celestial Emperor Alliance. After half a month of refining, Luo Xiang's spiritual body also evolved to a superior sky spiritual body. When Luo Xiang's spiritual body evolved, it actually led to his cultivation reaching the Absolute Saint realm. Luo Xiang's cultivation had already reached the limit of the Supreme Saint realm. It was normal for him to break through by coincidence. Luo Xiang had a king body and could control one of the King Dao's laws, the speed law. When he became an absolute saint, Lu Ming and the others became stronger. At this moment there was good news. They finally found the location of the array disc. Lu Ming immediately gathered everyone and headed to the Absolute Saint battlefield. The Absolute Saint battlefield was actually a huge array world. It had been built by the Emperor himself. Back when the Origin Mountain Sacred Academy was first opened, only Paragon Saints were allowed to enter and cultivate there. But now, the Absolute Saint battlefield had been adjusted. Even Bright Saints could enter. The entrance to the Absolute Saint battlefield was guarded by the Saint Court's elders. Entering required a large number of origin stones. Lu Ming and the others, a few dozen people, paid the origin stones and entered a spacious secret room. This secret chamber could be considered to have been reserved by them. Outsiders were not allowed to enter. Entering the Absolute Saint battlefield required one's mind to enter. Their physical body would remain outside. This was to prevent them from being ambushed after entering the Absolute Saint battlefield. Everyone sat down cross-legged. Inscriptions appeared in the secret room and covered their bodies. The next moment, they discovered that their minds had entered a mysterious space. Then, they discovered that they had appeared on a grassland. It's so real. The cultivation is exactly the same as the outside world. Even the laws are the same. Lu Ming sensed that everything was the same as the outside world. There really was no difference. This shocked Lu Ming. This array world was indeed extraordinary. Previously, when he was helping Ouyang Wushuang in the Xinyuan Empire, the first trial was also to enter a world of formations. However, the cultivators who entered the formation would only be able to form the body of a first-layer martial dominator. Their cultivation and the power of laws would not be able to be used inside the formation. But here they could use it as they wished. It was on a completely different level. The others who hadn't entered the saintly battlefield also secretly felt it, exclaiming endlessly. It was indeed extraordinary that the Emperor had built it himself. There are many beasts formed by formations in the Absolute Saint battlefield. After asking around, one of the array discs might be on Violent Ape Mountain. Ouyang Wushuang said. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.